Shadows of Doubt is a private investigator slash immersive sim game set in a procedurally generated city with hundreds of citizens with fully simulated life routines. Sounds like the best game ever, right? Let's find out. The game takes place in the fictional country of the United States, and your ass plays as a private investigator in alternative reality of grimdark 80s cyberpunk, where corporations are controlling the world. So, nothing like our world, right? Here, people frequent so-called sync clinics and upgrade their bodies by installing software in their brains to watch hentai at work without being caught. What's more is, since this is the 80s we're talking about, there is still a certain lack of modern technologies, like cell phones, the internet, or magic wands, which makes the world more grim and noir-like, and not because of the absence of dildos. Right off the bat, I have to say that this game doesn't have any major story, and that is one of the weaker elements of its current build. And I say current build because there's one little problem, but we'll talk about later. The character, if he can even be called that, is a complete blank slate with the only goal of earning enough money to feed his Funko Pop addiction and afford cushy retirement. Even the murder cases that you can take on do not have a plot or something that would be predetermined. Everything is procedurally generated, as I mentioned before, except for the tutorial case, which serves as an introduction. And because of this wacky randomization, anything can happen, but you rarely find the motive. The game just randomly picks a killer who starts murdering people and tasks you to find the culprit. Boom. It's like ChatGPT wrote the entire thing. And you know what? It's not bad. Until it is, at some places. Example. In your detective escapades, you can't question suspects or witnesses about any specific topics or pieces of evidence you might have. The conversation system in this game is very lackluster, so if you were expecting fantastical levels of LA noir, then get the fuck out. But if you're a neurodivergent fella with an imaginative mind, then you can certainly spin your own stories based on the info you have. And when you'll be writing your after-action report about your case, you might use your creative mind to imagine how it all went down and masturbate to your own ingenuity that you cracked the case sitting at home and receiving benefits from the state. But the rest of us normal idiots will have to do without the storytelling, because this dynamic world has none of it. But hold it right there, motherfucker. Don't feel discouraged, because the gameplay is the part where the game's originality can win you back. Basically, the game has two main parts: murder cases and side jobs. Let's explore both. In this game, murder cases begin with you being told the location of the crime scene where the murder just happened. You can just go right there and snoop around. You will probably need some lockpicks though, but those are lying around in no short supply. Or you can just buy them at vending machines. Crime scene has information abound. Fingerprints, phone calls, security camera footage, GameStop receipts in trash can, used condoms, and even the murder weapon will be there if you're lucky. But I must say, the game really doesn't hold your hand. It's up to you, big boy, to find all this cool evidence and deduce which details are important and pertinent to the case and which leads are complete duds. Because, like in your anti-Jordan Peterson apartment, you'll find a lot of shit lying around and not all of it will be useful. It is here the game creates a very immersive experience that actually makes you feel like your private investigator who's trying to crack a case to, once again, buy more Funko Pops. Since the game is procedurally generated, you actually have to use your brain, because this isn't a game where the developer has laid steps that you can simply retrace to get to the truth. There is no walkthrough, everything is completely randomized, don't even try to Google it. Now here's another thing that really contributes to the immersion in this game. I'm talking about the ludicrous amount of detail in which this world is simulated. Here's an example. A guy gets picked as a murderer, but he doesn't have a weapon. Before he goes and commits his crime, he needs to buy a weapon in a store. And get this funny purchase gets registered in the sales ledger. So if you find an 8mm bullet casing at the crime scene, you can actually go and check each store individually for records of people who recently bought a weapon with such ammunition. And chances are, you will find your killer in this list. It's worth noting that due to the vast amount of information and data you can find, and the game is not holding your hand, it is absolutely possible that a lead you follow will turn out to be a dead end. Like my career, incidentally. Just like your mother, this game will ask you to do a lot of chores, and you will do a significant amount of legwork in the meantime. For example, if you think that a murderer is one of the victim's 12 colleagues, you will have to investigate 12 people individually, and 11 of them will be innocent. And that may infuriate some people, but I think this brings us as close to a job of private investigator as possible, because they do the exact same stuff in real life. Most of the leads will be dead ends, and that's that. That's what immersion is all about, becoming a real detective and, well, finding the culprit. This game is not some arcadey bullshit that removes certain steps to make it more appealing and video game-like. Nope, it's the opposite. That's what real investigators do. And you have to decide whether you're up for it or prefer games that protect your brain from thinking and investigating leads like real men do. But I think we both know the answer. But hold on, this is really a lot of information to keep in mind to find your culprit, right? Luckily, the game makes it relatively easy to order all the shit with the case board. Here, you can pin any evidence you find and connect the pieces together with lines of various colors. Yes, just like a conspiracy theorist nut job. Moreover, the game will do some sorting on its own. For instance, if you find the victim and their wallet with ID, the game will automatically draw a connection between them. You can also move all this information freely, creating a sort of a memory palace where all the information stays where you need it. So keep it tidy and make me proud. So what we have here is an excellent information sorting system that facilitates case management, which can be overwhelming at first. But if you can read, hopefully, you'll see for yourself that Shadows of Doubt makes information gathering as easy as pie, and the level of customization is positively stunning. I have not talked about side jobs yet, have I? Well, let's say they are similar to murder cases, but vary in two major ways. Firstly, you get much fewer details to work with. I mean, sometimes it goes a little something like this. Your target is a 27-year-old male and his wife works at a diner. Go find him and break his bones. And to solve this pickle, you have to break into the diner, hack into the database, and go through all the data to find all the people working there. And then you go visit their homes one by one and break inside to identify the age of their partner. Classic Sunday school shenanigans. Here, you can experiment, just like with your sister, about how you're going to find your mark, and trust me, it gets pretty funny at times. All this can be pretty rewarding if you're up for solving a seemingly impossible task. But it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, that's for sure. Luckily, you can, at any point of time, drop the case and have absolutely zero consequences. No penalties, no reputation drop, no nothing. Second major way in how side jobs differ from murders is that these side gigs aren't necessarily about catching the culprit and arresting him. There are lots of different types of side gigs. It can be that you need to steal something, trash an apartment, humiliate someone in public, and so on. This tells us that our hero is not above some good old crime, because when you're breaking inside an apartment to find clues and evidence, you're breaking the law, and you will have to pay a fine if you get discovered. But you already knew that, am I right? You crazy stalker. And, since you're not on a police payroll, you can kill people freely, and there won't be any police brutality protests afterwards, so I suggest you make the best of the situation. A man's gotta pay for his Philippine dolls after all. In a good sandbox fashion, Shadows of Doubt also has a progression mechanic of brain software upgrades, which you can install in sync clinics. Upgrades offer you two options that are mutually exclusive, so you will have some decisions to make. There are upgrades that help you earn more money, expand your inventory, and eliminate the feeling of tiredness, cold, fall damage, and so on. If you can get your hands on them, do so, because they are incredibly helpful. Another thing that has progression and requires financial investments is your apartment that you can buy with your hard-earned cash. When you buy it, you can decorate the apartment however you want. And since this is an immersive sim, we can sleep in a bed, eat food from the fridge, listen to some music, and so on. Now let's talk about the graphical component of the game. What you're seeing is called voxel graphics. And of course, the quintessential voxel game would be Minecraft, and I think the jury is still out on whether this style can be called ugly or not. But I know that it greatly helped the procedural generation of the world, so let's leave it alone. I mean, clearly the developers had some priorities in mind, and I'd rather have gameplay over graphics any time of the day. Sound and music are serviceable. Nothing that I would call exceptional, to be sure. I mean, I rarely paid attention to audio because it doesn't work on the immersive level. This game is driven by mechanics, not sound, although graphics certainly help a bit. But voice acting, on the other hand, is simply not present. I'm not sure if it's a stylistic choice or just a current build issue, but given the fact that the game is procedurally generated and there's a gargantuan amount of stuff including text, I'm not even sure if it's possible to do voice acting for such a game. So it's okay, absence of voices does not break the immersion, because there's a lot of customization you can do. And let's talk about that. You know, I think it's a cardinal sin of the video game industry to provide minimal settings and customization to the game. This is what usually takes you out of the experience and makes you constantly notice these bizarre settings that you can't even change. I mean, not having an option to select frame rate cap, field of view, and VSync should be punished by beheading, and I think they do so in Colombia. Thankfully, this game has it all. Depth of field, film grain, bloom, motion blur, everything can be selected individually, and 9, count them, 9 volume sliders allow you to fine-tune your audio experience of the game. Everything, every key can be rebound, even the gameplay settings. Yes, gameplay settings. How about that? You can make your start significantly easier or harder by changing the amount of money and lockpicks you have. And you can begin the game as a homeless bum or as a patrician with an apartment, which you probably bought with an OnlyFans account. Any status effects can be switched on or off if you don't like them. You can also limit the amount of information you get. Objective markers, tutorial hints, navigation arrow, or illegal action radar that shows if bystanders are aware of the shady stuff you're performing. And now let's talk about the elephant in the room. And no, I'm not talking about your waistline, I mean the early access issue. I've been pretty positive about the game so far, but there's a big fat but hiding behind the corner. Shadows of Doubt has one problem that exists within games and Eastern European women that frequent nightclubs: early access. As of now, the game has a lot of bugs and can be short on content if you're not creative enough with your approach to the game and the cases you'll be taking. So far, the game has only one well-developed and elaborate case, the tutorial one to be precise. Every other case in comparison is much more simple in structure because they all follow the same template. And as for the bugs, well... sometimes you cannot complete jobs because of glitches, you can fall through the floor, people on the street will suspect you of wrongdoing for no reason, clues you are getting either contradictory or so vague that many people match the description so you won't be able to finish the case, evidence can disappear and you won't be able to catch the criminal, NPCs get stuck and won't follow their routine, items can become overlapped with one another, and cameras don't work because the building was generated without security room, and many more. I absolutely think that these things are flaws, but you can definitely enjoy the game in spite of them. I mean, never once has the game crashed on me, and these bugs aren't game stopping. I mean, at worst, you can just abandon your case and start a new one without any bugs. My hope is that developers add some absolutely necessary things to their game, such as implementation of motives and dialogue system where you can question or present certain evidence to get additional information. So, once again, I do hope that developers will try to work on these things, because their absence is noticeable. In conclusion, I'd like to say that this is absolutely the best game to play if you want to walk a mile in the boots of a gumshoe private detective. Such a dynamic and procedurally generated world is certainly a new thing in the video game industry, and I hope that developers realize what hidden gem they have on their hands. I really dislike the early access tag because it basically says that there is no guarantee that you will ever see the final product. But this time I'm positively optimistic, because the devs are very responsive and working their ass off to reach all the milestones on their roadmap. Hopefully they won't abandon this project faster than Meghan Markle destroyed Harry's life. But for now, the game will surely give you dozens upon dozens of hours of gameplay experience. It's very good already in its current state. And finally, this game gives us something that can help us deal with the police brutality issue. We can become a part of it. Thanks for watching.